speaking of training, I think even the phrase of the training models has been something that's only been popularized recently, or at least more known mainstream recently, with things like ChatGPT 3 versus 4, these different models. I'm not even sure they're considered like models in like the traditional sense, but what does it mean to actually like train a model? Let's say that you are peeking into the day-to-day life of a machine learning engineer that is responsible for improving and training models. What does your day look like?
This is something that has changed a great deal just over the last year or so, I would say. So looking at, maybe more than a year ago, what this would look like is you have an internal data sets that your company owns, and your goal is to utilize this data set to generate a model that will perform some task at some performance. Ideally, and most likely, your company already has some system that performs this task. Maybe this is ranking content for recommendation. Maybe this is estimating risk in an insurance pipeline. Maybe doing the type of classification of different kinds of content. It could be any number of things. There's some sort of heuristic systems that are in place, and you need to improve this. And so usually this breaks down into first identifying the problem that you're trying to solve, really characterizing this ideally with metrics to understand where are we at right now and where do we want to get to. Then consolidating the data that you have into a data set. Sometimes this is a single snapshot of data if you'd hired a team of human labelers to give you one set of data. Or if you're utilizing things like user actions as data, like, for example, at Twitter, user clicks and likes and such for data. You're more subscribing to existing streams of data as opposed to consolidating some individual sub-data set. Regardless of which of those two routes that you're going, your next step is to pull this data into some environment, a notebook or a script or something, and then utilize tools like PyTorch, scikit-learn, TensorFlow, whatever is the type of tool that you want to produce your model, evaluate that model in this same environment that you utilize to train it, and then push it into some kind of live serving environment, whether this might be a batch prediction or this might be an online prediction, depending on the dynamics of your environment and the types of technology that you'll utilize for these different kinds of deployment processes. It can be very, very different depending on exactly which type of organization you're in. And then your goal is to validate that indeed your model that's been incorporated into this final stage does produce that improvement in metrics that they had expected. And then this is usually an iterative process where you go through all of these steps in many iterations, many times as you make these systems better. So if you're working at a 0 to 1 kind of product, you may be consolidating each of these for the first time. Many engineers fit into, especially larger tech companies, will fit into teams that already have a process that does this to some extent and have the goal of making it 20% better or something like that. Things have changed a decent amount now with the latest increase in efficacy and usability of large language models as zero-shot classifiers for a number of different kinds of tasks. It's now often the case that much of the work that we would do for the initial consolidation of data and incorporation of data into models that are grown entirely out of the ground within the company can be supplanted or supplemented by the incorporation of externally trained models into the process. So this could be either taking a previously fine-tuned model online and fine-tuning it and improving its performance in your data. That's a strategy that's already been around for a very long time, and is very important to has been important in workflows for decades. Or in some cases, taking something entirely off the shelf and then modifying how you represent your own data to it, something that we might call prompt engineering, to then perform your tasks. And so this is a totally new kind of way of utilizing external models and really changes the mechanisms of the training process. But I would say that the majority of organizations that utilize machine learning would fall into more of this initial kind of take data, train an internal model, and push it into production, because that's what drives the vast majority of revenue that's driven by machine learning today, and probably will continue to be that way for quite a while.
If you enjoyed this clip, make sure you watch the entire video, which has a lot more content just like this. And if you want to make sure you don't miss any of our episodes where we talk to leaders in the tech industry, from software engineers to product managers to engineering manager, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel and also click the notification bell.